Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Rachel Guerzo. Thank you. And usually, when I come in contact with the microphone, I break out in a song. But today, I'm here to talk about my family, and my talk is entitled My Musical DNA. Now, I'm not a doctor. I shall leave the technical details to Dr. Serena to explain to you how that works, the DNA. But although, I've been in the family long enough, and they've actually awarded me a PhD on the Soliano studies, a permanent head badge. As you can see, it's a very large family. And music is really in my blood. I think it's safe to say that blood is also in my music. Okay? Because it's been, we've been here for 6 generations already. I just discovered that it's already 6 generations last night. Okay, prior to this talk, I had hardly any information about my late great-grandfather, which is the late Mr. Rufino Soliano. He was the first Soliano to land here in Malaya. He came here in 1896. He was brought in by the British government to form the Selangor State Band. There were 64 Filipino musicians that was brought in by the British government to form the Selangor State Band. He played first trumpet, and when he came, he was only 16 years old, with a young wife and 2 kids. Yes. Already had 2 kids when he got here. Yes, so traveled from Cebu, southern Philippines, to when they first landed was in Sabah, I believe. It took them 3 months by boat to get here. So anyways, when Bert asked me to do the talk, I thought I'd get working on the family tree again, because when I first started when I was 13 years old, and I stopped at the 3rd generation. But so gatal when I do the family tree, and now I've missed out on 3 generations, so as you can see, the tree is not completed. But coming back to how he got here and how they got so deep into music, was because he, married a musician as well, and they were always surrounded by musicians. They were traveling a lot, playing music all around the Nusantara. And according to my late grandfather, one of 17 children of Mr. Rufino Soliano. However, only 7, if you have a chance to look at the tree later. It's quite an interactive tree. It looks like the London Underground map right now, but you have to take some time to understand what it is. He had 7 children that were legally documented. I have no idea what happened to the rest, and apparently they died very young and stuff like that, because they were very, very poor. So I suppose when they got ill, they didn't make it. So in the early days, when Mr. Rufino, when my late great-grandfather's contract with the British government expired, he stayed on with the rest of 62 musicians out of the 64. They stayed on in Malaya and decided to look for work here. And he accompanied silent movies, when they didn't have audio with movies then. He played for that and traveled along with the Bangsawan troops. I'm not sure if you know what the Bangsawan troops are for this young boy over here. Okay, the Bangsawan troops is like traveling traveling group of theater musicians. They would go town to town, they would entertain people because they didn't have theaters anymore. So they would travel on bullock carts and entertain people in different towns. So he produced 17 children, and they subsequently also learned how to play musical instruments. And you could say that they were the first child laborers because they started playing in the bangsawan as well. And somehow they landed in Singapore, and when they were in Singapore, there was a visiting musician, a famous pianist by the name of Marcelo Anciano. He was working there, and my great uncle, Concordio Soliano, sorry, it's not right here, but my great uncle studied under him. He wanted to learn how to play the piano so bad that he worked as a houseboy for him, and in return, he didn't accept wages because he wanted to study piano, and so that was in lieu of piano lessons that his work for Marcelo Anciano was. So he was the only Soliano in that generation who had formal music training, and he could really read and play all those really complicated classical pieces. So from there, he taught his other siblings how to play the piano, including my late grandfather, Alfonso Soliano. Now, Alfonso Soliano was born in Singapore, 1925, and he moved from Singapore to then Malaya. Singapore was too small, I guess, not enough jobs. They decided to move to KL. And when he came, he introduced some really funky music. Okay. And nobody really understood what he was playing. He was playing bebop, bebop is a very complicated form of jazz. So he then was offered a job in Radio Malaya, and from there he set up the country's first national orchestra. He did a lot of things that shaped the landscape of the Malaysian music industry then. You could say out of the 7, Alfonso was probably the most prolific and most famous one out of all of them. Although they all contributed a lot to the music scene. Going back to Singapore, the eldest of the Soliano siblings, Mr. Jerry Soliano, who is actually 20 years older than Alfonso. So there's a big age gap there. And some of the generations actually overlap each other. So hence, that's why a lot of people confuse Alfonso and Tony Soliano to be brothers. But Tony Soliano was his nephew. Okay, coming back to Alfonso, he was instrumental in setting up the nation's first orchestra. A major feat for someone who did not complete school, came from a very humble background, no formal musical training, and just a lot of firsts that the country has seen and he has produced. For example, notating asli music. So when I was putting this talk together, the memories came back to me, because when I first started playing the piano, my grandfather naturally was my first teacher, and I was looking to expand my repertoire, and I was looking forward to learning some Disney songs, right? And I call him Lolo. Lolo in Filipino means grandfather. So I said, "No, can you teach me a new song, please?" Then he came to the piano and he started playing this song. Surirang, Surirang. Do you know this song?
Yes.
It's an Asli song. And you know, it's... I thought, what a boring piece of music. And the other one was... Belenggang mainang, belenggang, la 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 la. You know, beautiful melody, right? But I hated it. I thought it was so boring, and it was just not cool to be playing that when all my friends were, listening to popular tunes. But now, thinking back. And the memory associated with that song is just so beautiful, and I really appreciate Asli music. And the reason why my grandfather wanted me to learn the songs was because he had Asli music embedded so strongly in him. He had performed in the bangsawan as early as the age of 7. So at 7 years old, they already put him to work. I cannot imagine, And so no wonder he was really always trying to teach me and imbibe all these traditions in me. By the way, Asli was so in the Soliano blood. And all 7 brothers and sisters, when they conversed with each other, they actually spoke in Malay. My grandfather's Malay was really, really good. I mean, he could pass off as orang asli, But so I think that's the confusion with the name. A lot of people tend to associate us as being Malaysians. But when they see the name, they get confused. They're like, you speak Malay, you look like Malay, but your name is not Malay. So that's where the name came from Philippines. And so he then, in turn, got married to also a bangsawan progeny. They don't need any other people on the road, right? All still within the clan. And my grandmother was also a singer, dancer for bangsawan. So hence, I really think it's a curse. Because we never really got away from that lifestyle. My mother, in turn, over here, the 3rd out of 10 children that my grandfather produced, who were all, incidentally, also musicians, all 10 of them. And married a musician. And if you follow the trail, you can see they also produce 8 musicians. So yes, you could say that blood is in my music. And so the Soliano family had also received, I can't remember the title of the award, but I think it's the longest family act awarded by the Guinness Book of Records last year. So from 1896 to 2016, we have been here 120 years and going strong, producing one too many musicians, I would say. Any questions? Nobody has any questions? You want to Google? Yes.
Where are you on the spot?
Oh, that's a very nice question. Because I put a really nice photo of myself right here. That's me. I play the piano and I sing. Thank you for your question.
I have a question. Among your family, what can they not play?
What can they not?
What instrument can they not play?
Oh, there's quite a few. I don't think we have a harpist in the family. A lot. We mainly play the basic instruments in a small ensemble. Rhythm section, bass, piano, drums, trumpet. Section. Yeah.
Where did your name surname come from? Guerzo?
Guerzo is also Filipino, and we are the first generation Guerzo born here. So there's only 12 Guerzos in the whole of Malaysia. So if you see any Guerzos, you know they're related to me. Yes.
Are the youngest generation also involved in music? Silly question, maybe?
Yes.
Could you tell me how much you remember when your grandfather was in the RTM orchestra? Do you remember those days?
Not really, because I wasn't born yet. By the time I was born, he had already the family lived in Bangkok for a while, for 10 years, and by the time, when they came back, I was born in 1974. Way to go. And by then he had just returned to Malaysia, and he was working there as a senior musician. Sorry.
Can we request a song, Suleiman?
Yeah. I can't remember all of the songs. Don't put me on the spot, bird. But I like Lagu Asli now. I don't know why. Must be because it's associated with those memories.
Where are you performing now?
Oh, that's a very good question. I can plug my gig?
Yeah.
Can I? My next public performance will be at Alexis Great Eastern Mall for Christmas Eve, 23rd and 24th.
Sing a Christmas song.
Okay, I have to charge you. I don't give away my art for free. Malaysians must learn to pay for art, okay? But it's only 99 cents.
Alfonso, during the Singapore days, before he came up to do bebop here, he was involved in film scoring. Can you tell us a little bit about the personalities he met? For example, Pirami, right? So,
actually, you can. Saida is like an extended family member. Okay, good question. My grandfather, before he left Singapore, he actually scored music for the first Pirami movie called Cinta, starring Pirami and Siput Sarawak. So when he left, but I think before even he left, Uncle Duding Concordio, which is Rindra's grandfather, also scored quite a few of Pirami's movies. And that was his first and only film score, music scoring for a film, sorry. Yeah.
and his sister in an industry where actually at meetings like this, at events like this, we always hear about men's achievements. And to me, it's amazing here that a lot of the women achieved so much. Can you tell us a little bit about Alfonso's sister?
Can. I hope I don't tell lies. His sister, which is the late Irina Soliano, was probably the first female pianist and singer this country has ever seen. And yeah, it's almost like a tradition that every generation produces a pianist singer, because there's two after that, and the third generation, my mom and my auntie also did the same, and they're still doing, my auntie is still doing. and then me, another pianist singer, and my niece. So it seems to be carrying on, we seem to be carrying on the tradition. But yes, she was apparently, well, we don't have any recordings, unfortunately, of her performance, but through all the stories that were related to us by our family members, she was quite the entertainer, and she had quite a charisma, you know. She was very well loved. Yes.
I'm a hobbyist musician. I play for free. Now, it's interesting that you say people should pay for arts. My question is, being a musical family, does music really make money in Malaysia? I mean, when he scores all these compositions, do they get royalties at all?
I can't really reveal professional secrets. But, you know, just to give you an idea, we have been in the music industry for 120 years, so you do the math. I'm not gonna kid, it's not easy. It really isn't an easy going life. But, you know, we're simple. We play a very complicated genre of music. It's sophisticated to a lot of people. Jazz is very sophisticated. By the way, we're so associated with jazz. I have so many jazz musicians in the family. But we're really very simple-minded people. Even though we, so I think, you know, you when you want to talk about money and musicians, they just really don't gel. Because if you were to think about money and you want to make music as a career, it's really, you really have to weigh your pros and cons. It's not an easy journey, really.
Sorry, can I just ask one last question? At the time Alfonso was in town working at Radio Malaya, the task was to set up an orchestra because the government of the day wanted this grand thing. But at that time, many of the musicians didn't know how to read music notes or the tauge. So how did Alfonso go about setting up an orchestra?
Well, he actually had to train them, some of them even from scratch, because he just had this notion that he wanted to build an orchestra made up of local musicians. He was adamant about it. He didn't want to take the suggestion of importing more Filipino musicians, although he had that option. But he wanted to create something wholly Malaysian, so he started from scratch. He actually trained a lot of the musicians himself. And that took really years to put the orchestra together. It wasn't overnight, that's for sure. I mean, if you know the ramifications of being a musician, it takes many, many years to be a professional musician. He had really dedicated his life to building something, and something that we should all be very proud of. If you have the time, come to the exhibition in the back and you'll be, we have music from that era and some of the memorabilia displayed.
Okay, well, next up at 2:30. So you can take leave and come back. Do come back.
Thank you.